Hi everyone, it's Vita here. So, from the title of this video, you probably already know what we're going to be talking about. That being said, I do want to brace y'all for some stuff. This video exists in two parts and is going to talk about the Pulse Orlando shooting in very explicit detail in order to make sure that people have the information that they need to process and be informed about the incident that happened, as well as to get information about the syllabus that was created as a result of this event. Before we get into the information of this video, I just want to send my love, light, and healing to anyone who lost somebody in this horrific incident of homophobia and racism, especially my trans and queer people of color who were most impacted by the atrocities that happened in Orlando, Florida some time ago. Let's just start at the beginning with the things you need to know about Pulse Nightclub. Pulse Nightclub was originally founded in Orlando, Florida. It was opened with Barbara Palma and Ron Legler in 2004 to promote awareness of the area's trans and queer community. It was not only known as a nightclub, but this place also doubled as a community center. There were monthly programmed events as well as scheduled nightly themed performances that happened there. It was known as a place that was a safe haven for the trans and queer community in Orlando. When it comes to people of color at that intersection, it's one of the only places that people really thought they could be free. In the description below, there will be an article from Kazembe Jackson which talks about the importance of nightclubs for people of color and how we learned so many revolutionary and beautiful and affirming things, and how we can still use those things today in spite of the way that trans and queer people of color are receiving awful treatment. There's just a lot of pain around this. So if I find myself stalling and stopping, it's because this is a really heavy video and it's only part one, so hang in there with me, okay? Thank you. Now we're going to get into the hard information. Trigger warnings are obvious: racism, homophobia, murder, erasure, co-opting. We're definitely going to talk about a lot of how white cisgender presence has been so invasive and almost automatic, almost autonomous in the way that it invades the trauma of Black and brown, trans and queer people. If at any point it's triggering and you need to stop this video, pause this video. Take the care you need in order to be able to sit through this video, as it's a difficult one to watch. Going back to early Sunday morning, June 12th, 2016, it was a Latinx night at the Pulse Nightclub. Mostly Black and brown people there. The specifics about that would be Puerto Rican people and undocumented Latinx people. What happened, according to the reports, is that there was a gunman who came in to the club. Initially, I do believe getting into a firefight with police officers first, and then making his way into the club and opening fire on everyone who was there. The jury's still kind of out on this, but there were reports of a potential second shooter and another person blocking the exit. As I said before, I can't find any information that would either confirm or deny that, so take that with a grain of salt. The body count as a result of this shooting was pretty high. There were at least 50 killed and at least 53 people injured. Of the people killed and injured, the majority of those people were Black and brown at the intersection of Latinx, trans and queer, and Black and trans and queer. So that gives you the racial demographic of what we're dealing with here. The Orlando Chief of Police, John Mina, has reported some pretty disturbing news, as it appears that SWAT officers who were dispatched to defuse the situation and incapacitate the shooter may have fired on some of the victims that were in the club that night. There's also audio from the dispatch call from the shooter himself that is yet to be released, and we're still waiting on it, and a lot of us are really curious as to why that audio has not been released to the public when so many of us want those answers and have asked for them very explicitly. It is reported that the shooter took hostages inside of the club's bathroom, and that the only way that they could get those hostages out was for the back of the club to be broken into with heavy artillery, and from there, after like a final shootout, with the police, the shooter was killed. As much as I really don't want to do this part, I wouldn't be reporting the information right if we didn't talk about the shooter himself. Omar Mateen was 29 years old from Port St. Lucie, Florida. After multiple reports have surfaced that Mateen actually frequented Pulse Nightclub as a patron, it is the belief of a lot of people, and I'm most certainly inclined to agree, that Mateen was dealing with some internalized homophobia and internalized misogyny that caused him to behave in very violent ways towards people in multiple respects. There's also the reported information from multiple people who had frequented that club at some point that Mateen had been using multiple gay dating apps and like hookup apps, and actually using some of those apps with people who were at that nightclub. Mateen was also a person who had been investigated 3 times by the FBI, twice in 2013 and once in 2014 for a connection to extremist groups. They didn't specify which groups, they didn't say who they might have been involved with, but we do know for a fact that Mateen was actually hired by an extremist, very oppressive, very violent group of people, and those people were actually from the United States. Mateen was employed with the G4S, which has been cited for a number of human rights violations, including their participation in the apartheid situation in Palestine as a result of Israel being fucked up. These were the people who probably knew that Mateen had been investigated by the FBI not once, not twice, but 3 times, and still hired him for security of all things. Mateen was also someone who was known to be very openly racist and physically abusive, not only to co-workers but to his wife, which was something that his wife actually discussed after the shooting had occurred. It was really kind of hard to hear some of the stuff that she had been put through, but as we learn more of this information, this person is becoming more and more predictable, and it's becoming more and more understandable. Not like relatable, and I'm not co-signing for this asshole. I'm just saying that it makes more sense, the type of person he was, when we have all this information and we can connect this human's behaviors to his state of mind. Why is this important? Why are we talking about it even? Why does it matter when we're talking about what happened at the club that night? The biggest reason is the Islamophobia that was sure to follow after it was reported on a phone call that Mateen pledged allegiance to ISIS. As we know, ISIS has openly and willingly taken in all of these claims of association to their organization because for them it bolsters their power. So anyone who has ever made an attack in their name is being co-signed by them. So the result was that we had extreme Islamophobia already hitting the country. There was all this talk about ISIS, but we weren't having a conversation about the type of person Mateen was. And we're still not really. We're still, like, we're kind of having that conversation now, but most of that is because people of color have taken up that mantle to make sure people know this is more of a question of this person's character. This person was a horrible human being. He was a horrible fucking human being who was physically abusive, who was openly racist, who has articles written about him about how he stalked his co-workers, and about how he made threats. So the government right now, all they're wanting you to focus on is that he pledged his allegiance to an organization that is going to take credit for that because that's what they want. And so that's why it's important to talk about the type of person Mateen was. This person was full of self-hate. This person was full of internalized homophobia, transphobia, and hyper-masculine misogyny. As a result, he committed what is being known as one of the greatest mass shootings in the history of this country. And it was because this man was not a good man, was not a good person, did not see people that were not white, cisgender, and heterosexual as human beings that deserved to be on this planet. That is why he shot at the club that night. And all you're hearing right now is rhetoric about gun laws and Democrats are staging unnecessary filibusters for shitty legislation that only fuels the problem. It turned into a thing about agendas at this point, and so both presidential candidates immediately jumped on the anti-Muslim bandwagon as if they weren't already on it, and decided that they were going to publicly say that there needs to be a ban on all Muslims, even though statistically speaking, Muslims are responsible for the absolute lowest percentile, I'm pretty sure, of mass shootings in this country. As if the Islamophobia wasn't already bad enough in this country before the shooting, we also add to it just the constant amount of co-opting. The constant. And when I say the constant, y'all, I mean people are already selling pride rings, cop cars have heartbeats with like a pulse symbol going through them, and like we are Orlando on the side of these police vehicles, and they're all covered in rainbow colors, and white cisgender people are totally missing the point, and even some white transgender people are totally missing the point, because this does not make us safer. We're not at this part of the video, we're gonna get there, and before I lose my cool, I'm gonna take a couple deep breaths. Okay, we gotta do it. We gotta do it. Do it for them. Do it for them.